Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is, yeah? Welcome. Okay. In my last 3 speaking assignments, I was always given by the organizers post-lunch slot. I don't really know why. And today the same thing repeats. I hope I can keep you interested in the presentation, and my presentation will take about 25 minutes or so, and it will leave adequate time for questions. And just to clarify, I represent here the Indian Diesel Engine Manufacturers Association, and which is known as IDEMA, which is the right-hand side top logo which you see there. And this association, this is how the content of the presentation will be, about 30 slides. This, yeah, I can see it there. This association started in 1967. It's a pretty old industry association in that sense, while the manufacture of diesel engines of the type which we are discussing here, that started in 1947. And the association IDEMA is affiliated to CII, which all of us know. So members are manufacturing engines of various fuels like gas and biogas and diesel and heavy fuels and things like that. And this is a non-profit society, and it works only in the interest of the members, and it works only on the monies received as fees from our members. We receive no funding other than that. Just to give you a flavor, we have a website where all our members are listed, but just to give you a flavor, Indian large companies, major companies, they are about 9. Then smaller Indian companies, which are about 21. And there are global companies. Global companies, some of the names which I'll mention during the presentation. Some manufacturing in India, 10 of them, and maybe 3 of them are importing into India, manufacturing elsewhere in the world. So this is what this association consists of. I will focus on the engine industry, as in engines which are not used for automobile. These are engines which are used for earth-moving machinery, marine vessels, construction equipment, power generating set, these kind of equipment, as differentiated from the ones which are used on trucks and automobile. And before I proceed any further, I would like to emphasize that I do not represent any of the member companies or any company where the names are mentioned in this presentation. They are just members of my association, and that is to illustrate the point I am going to make. I have used some information related to these companies. So I will urge you to refrain from asking me company specific questions. Industry specific questions are welcome. So I'll share with you the information which will help you in understanding this industry from an investor's perspective. From an investor perspective, because this was, I was told, is an investor conference, and that's how I have brought this presentation here, which is from an investor perspective. So what we are going to cover, the scope of the presentation, which I already mentioned, it is a non-automotive kind of use. What are the markets? The power band portion, for some of you are not so technically inclined, may need a little explanation. Because in this sector, the engines are manufactured right from 3 horsepower, which sell for something like maybe 8,000, 10,000 rupees. And there are large engines which go up to 16,000 horsepower, which may be selling for something like 8 crores each. So there's a very wide range, and it is easy to explain the subject by breaking it down in relevant portions, because different companies operate in different power bands. That is why that word power band is used. What drives this market? What economic factors drive this market? Certainly, I am not an economist. I read this economist report, as all of you may be reading, and you can get a sense of direction as to the way economy is going and the way it is expected to go, what kind of impact it can have on this industry. So I have given indicators of what drives this market from an economic perspective. And who are the major players? And as I mentioned a little earlier, that different players in this industry have different strengths or focus of their attention to the market segment. So that is what I will illustrate by major players and markets. And of course, there are exports from India and there are few imports as well. So this is how the structure of the presentation is. This I already mentioned that we are discussing here non-automotive products, and we are also eliminating from this is captive consumption of engines for tractors or trucks. For example, Mahindra & Mahindra, they operate in this market and they may be making engines for their tractors, but that is not included in the figure work which will follow a little while from now. Similarly, Tata Motors is also in this business. They are members of our association. They make trucks. They sell the similar engines out of that into our market. But obviously, that vehicle business is not included in this. I hope it is visible a bit. Yeah, it's quite visible. All right. So this is the industry breaks down the power band in this manner. Not just in India, globally, this is the way the power bands are broken. And there's a reason why they are globally aligned is the global regulations concerning emissions, safety, maybe now the fuel consumption norms are coming in, etc. They are categorized into these power bands, which is the first column of this, this table. Second is you may be a bit surprised that number of units mentioned here are 2010. Yes, they are 2010 because the association IDEMA does not really compile quarter to quarter or month after month numbers. The last estimation was done in 2010. This gives you a flavor, and as I proceed with the presentation, I'll give you a sense of growth, what may have happened in last 4-5 years. So this I like to point out. And then the last line at the bottom is in the first power band, which is below 19 kW. There are, let's say, imports from neighboring countries which do not get very properly documented and difficult to get the correct information, which our association estimates something like 200,000. Now this number is little important to understand because if you see the first row, the right hand total column is about 400,000 units. 200,000 units are, let's say, coming in this manner. The size of this particular power band, market size, is close to 600,000. And as I told you a little before, that these sell for 8,000 to 10,000 rupees as an average price. Why it is important is many times when we go in these forums, people are imagining that India is a big market, China is a big market, especially the global audience. But it is important to maintain your sense of proportion. Now I'll tell you that when I visited the second largest manufacturer of engines below 19 kW in China, his manufacture was 1.2 million units. He was the second largest manufacturer. He mentioned to me the largest is somewhere about 1.4 million units. And the entire Indian market is, let's say, 600,000 units. So this gives you some idea as to the size of the business, or it can generate in your mind also the expectation that as the economy grows, as the agriculture grows, we may have larger numbers coming out of this. About 46,000 units are imported, which does not include that 200,000 which I mentioned. Say below more than 19 kilowatt range, whichever imports which you see a little larger, relatively larger number in 130 to 560 kilowatt. This is a range where there are some imports because there are I mentioned to you 2-3 global players who have sales and service offices here, and they try to do this business, and that is why those imports take place. These imports do not take place because they are price competitive or there is a differentiated technology due to which these are happening here. Market forces do play, and somebody makes an effort, they are able to therefore do that. So the statement which I am trying to make is by price comparison, it is not that prices of Indian engines manufactured by members of my association, they are higher than the global prices. They are comparable to global prices. That's all. And India is also an exporter. And this again, I'll point out, is an old figure, is about 46,000 units, but this number has substantially grown over last 4-5 years. We'll get an idea later on in the slide. This slide I brought along, the columns on the right are not visible, some problem with the colors I guess. But what it means is that this slide is from a very reputed consultancy firm called Off-Highway Research. The industry, engine industry, obtains a lot of reports from these people. And this was a report they made in 2010. The right-hand side columns which are not visible, what they had assessed is that this market will grow to the at a CAGR of about 12% from a base of 60,000. This is what they had estimated. So really speaking, 2015, this market should have been close to 100,000 units. But actually what has happened is this market is here. Market has not grown. It's roughly about same 60, 65,000 number of units range. So this slide I brought to give you a sense of feel that last 4 or 5 years, has this industry grown? The answer is perhaps it has grown very, very marginally. This section I'll run through. I suppose these slides will be made available to you later on. So you can refer to them as often as you wish. But just to point out that market below 19 kW is dependent on purchasing power in the rural part of the country. Driven by crop prices. We know last 4 or 5 years the crop prices were going up. Now they are a little bit tempered. Rural services sector, which sector has grown substantially. And credit availability, this is the easy loans which are made available to the farmers. And many times these loans are written off or subsidized interest is given or whatever. So then there are certain subsidies also given to the farming community. So these are the drivers which result into this number going up, primarily pointing towards agriculture. The next power band is like this. Here, a little bit of influence comes from the infrastructure spending. Whenever there are larger projects happening in the country, the smaller construction machinery also is required. Second reason why this sector receives orders is also due to the mechanization of road repair and pipe laying, etc., which is also increasing now. Gone are the days where we see that a particular trench is made on the road to put a cable inside or a pipe inside, and it remains open for months together because somebody is manually working on it day by day. Perhaps it is finished in 2 days' time. They made one trench in front of my house, and within 1 day the trench was gone. They put the pipe inside, closed it, end of the day, it was all done. So this is the hello. So this kind of demand drives the 19 to 37 kilowatt. And another second bullet I'd like to explain a little bit, which is related to power availability at the consumption point. Many of you may be following the power generation reports in the country. The plant load factors have improved, the power generation has improved. However, is the power available at the consumption point, especially in the rural areas? It is not. And that is where these smaller generating sets are installed either by the service sector there, which may be cold storage, which may be a small shop, or even the houses, because they have disposable income to invest into this kind of thing. So that drives demand in this smaller range. And also the data networks and telephone networks, they also require generating sets of this range. So that is how drives this demand in this power band. Now this one goes heavier into construction machinery, and broadly speaking this is dependent on the capital expenditure happening in the economy, either on the projects or even in building of factories and housing, larger projects of housing, etc. Because there the smaller mechanized equipment, popularly known as JCB, is many of us see that yellow equipment is used, compressors are used. So that drives this this power band as well. Once you go 13 to 800, again generally speaking capital expenditure, and now the construction building, because the larger machines which are required in coal mines, which are required in irrigation projects, those larger machines which we don't see in the urban India, these are more definitely on the projects, and these kind of machines and the capital expenditure happening in those sectors will drive demand for these. Above 800 is again the same thing. It is specific standby power, safety power, and also the safety power for nuclear power plants. That is a demand generator for this product. Safety power for nuclear power plants, because to maintain the safety of the nuclear power plants, there are certain generating sets which are installed with very stringent specifications, and very few companies are able to manufacture these generating sets. Shipbuilding, though we keep on hearing about private shipyards making merchant marine vessels and all that, that activity is relatively much lower as compared to what is required by Navy and Coast Guard. Now there are few slides of tables like this. I'll just explain one slide, and remaining I can run a little faster. On the left hand side you see the names of the companies who are in this slide. So for example, you have Cummins, Eicher, Greaves, etc. On the left hand side you see Mahindra and some other. And on the right hand, the column titles tell you that where are their major focus. So you'll observe that, for example, if I were to take the second one, now this Eicher is not to be confused with Eicher Motors. Eicher is the brand name of a company called, it was earlier known as Eicher, and it is part of Tafe company, and they manufacture engines. The brand name they use is Eicher. It has nothing to do with Eicher Motors. So they are obviously selling engines for tractors, because they make tractors also. Eicher tractors are there, and they sell engines for generating set. That is how the first line or the second line, Greaves Cotton, which all of maybe many of us know. Gujarat Forging is not a listed company. It's a company out of Kolhapur. Kirloskar is Kirloskar Oil Engines. Kohler is a global company operating in India, mainly importing from abroad and selling in India. And they also have a manufacturing plant in Aurangabad, especially in this range below 19 kW, and they manufacture these products there, and they sell for automotive. Now automotive reference here is towards the smaller vehicles, 3 and 4 wheel vehicles, which we see for local distribution here. Mahindra is same as Mahindra and Mahindra, and they have a small business of generating sets compared to their size. They have this business is small. PM Diesel, Rocket, these are some other names, and there are several small manufacturers in Agra and Rajkot and such places who operate in the agricultural business below 19 kilowatt. So this is how these slides are constructed, and one thing here which is Cummins, there is a star mark there because Cummins source the engines which they sell here from Simpson. Simpson is a privately owned company in Chennai. It's not listed, but they manufacture engines also. It's part of Massey Ferguson Group, amalgamation group rather. Now, as I said, I could run a little faster here because you will see the repetition of names, but you will see the green band shifting. So in different power ranges, which players are playing, you get a feel of that with these slides. The last one, Simpson, is mentioned here because they manufacture engines for tractors. Massey Ferguson tractors use their engines. This is 37 to 130, which is, you again see similar names, nothing much to explain except the last name, Tata. This is Tata Motors and also Tata Cummins. These companies manufacture the engines and they sell to Cummins for selling in generating set market. That is why they find mention here. In addition, Tata Motors also sell engines for construction equipment to their own, the related sister company, which is Hitachi. Tata Hitachi it used to be, I believe now it is Hitachi. These are the larger ones. Again, you see the familiar names, nothing much to explain here, except the last line which has appeared, that is Perkins. Perkins is a Caterpillar company, and they have recently started manufacture in India and set up a factory in Aurangabad, and that's how that name is appearing. Other names are similar, same from the previous ones. It's an unlisted company, Perkins also, and Caterpillar in India is also an unlisted company. So in the above 800, then these are the people you have. You have Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä is a listed company. They was a listed company. I'm not sure whether they are now, but Wärtsilä is a new name on this slide, so I feel like mentioning. Now, Let me spend a little time on what are the entry barriers to this, because obviously I go to China very often. In fact, I was there 2 weeks ago, and there are good manufacturers in China as well as there are not so good manufacturers in China. The good manufacturers in China are, they make good quality engines, their prices are competitive, comparable to Indian pricing, they can do business. So this slide is more to explain that for a new entrant from any country, not just by China, from any country, what could broadly be the entry barriers. The strong brand loyalty, or the word which I liked was used in today morning's presentation, that is the inertia of the users. If users are happy using Cummins engines for last 20 years, they would like to continue use Cummins or Kirloskar for that matter. Why change? And distribution service, of course, is important. I mentioned already that Indian pricing is not high, so it's creating opportunity for somebody else to manufacture somewhere in the world and bring it here. And present manufacturers do have spare capacity currently, so obviously they are not going to let someone come and walk over them. And one has to deal with multiple regulator authorities, which the new entrants coming from abroad may find it a bit daunting. Not impossible to do, but daunting. Now, many times we are asked question that are there emission regulations applicable to these products? These are non-automotive engines or generating sets. Yes, there are emission standards applicable. All are regulated, except there is no regulation for mining, locomotive, and marine. These are sectors for which government has yet to make any regulation, but otherwise everything else is regulated. And why this also achieves importance is that the companies operating in this business, whenever the emission standard is raised, they have to upgrade their products. They have to develop the technology. They have to develop it in-house or buy it or do whatever, but they have to meet those requirements. And all companies which are in this business currently, obviously they meet the requirement, otherwise they cannot do this business. So that is also importance to be noted. So next technology change, if I may say so, will be prompted from emission regulation, which is likely to be applicable from something like 2021-22. And the reason for that is, with the current level of fuel quality which is available in the country, the best possible emission standard is being achieved by the products, and further improvement is possible only when superior fuel is made available. That is why the last line is provided in bold, because this date is not a firm date. The government keeps on announcing these dates, and there's a substantial investment which government has to do in the refineries which are government-owned company refineries, and maybe that is the reason, and that is why it takes time. So that is the importance of this slide, that technology changes do happen. They happen typically in a period of 4 to 6 years, they do happen. But I imagine that somewhere about 2025 or so, because improvement beyond 10 ppm sulfur is not been done anywhere in the world, and India will attain that level. And once that level is achieved, then improving emissions beyond that is going to be not really possible as per the current understanding of the subject. And one more thing I should point out, that every time there is a change in the emission standards, as you observe in case of automobile, there is a step change in the pricing of the product, because the newer technology and the investment which has been made in developing that technology has to be recovered in the product pricing. So a step change takes place at that point of time. This slide is just to, you see, this is more appreciated by people in this trade in other countries rather than this audience, but I'll still explain it a little bit. You see, in other countries what happens is that for emission, there is only one authority. For example, in the United States, there is only one authority called EPA. And everything related to emission has to be dealt with them. And which is straightforward, approaching one agency, discussing with them, negotiating them, whatever, getting your products tested, certified, and things like that. While in India, this is very, very complex. If it is automobile, you deal with different ministry. If it is generating set, you deal with Ministry of Environment and Forest. Automobile, you deal with Ministry of Road Transport. Like this, there are variations. And then if you observe again that next row, that you have MOHI, which is Ministry of Heavy Industries. They look after the interest of Indian industry. But when it goes into agriculture, then it is job of Agricultural Ministry to look after this industry's welfare. So it's a complex situation. This is what I meant, that it is very daunting. And perhaps this slide again, all the colors are not visible, but you will get a feel that so for a product like tractor, tiller, these kind of products, so many agencies are involved before your product is certified for sale in India. So it's a very complex situation as compared to what exists in other countries where you deal with one agency and be done with it. Make in India, very much spoken these days, so I have few points here. That setting up manufacturing plant in India for this product is not a difficult task, because there are many good quality suppliers are available in the country, and that can be easily done. And also, as all of us know, the simplified procedure to manufacture, to set up manufacturing plants. So for new entrants, perhaps to my mind, the challenge is creating a market rather than manufacturing. And also bearing in mind that the present manufacturers do have spare capacity. This slide is, you don't have to read all the numbers. You may read if you wish to, but that is not the point here. The last line is only important, that the import custom duty barrier for this business is 7.5% only. It's not that there is a strong barrier to imports in this market. And those upper table is not, is actually the way the calculation runs, but end of the bottom line is that if you were to import the engine as a manufacturer of equipment from abroad, you are at a disadvantage of 7.5% only. It is not that there is a 20-30% barrier. Now this needs a little explanation. This section now is shifting to explain the industry from its attractiveness perspective, attractive to investors, attractive to setting up manufacturing, etc. And only 4 companies can be, their publicly available information can be picked up to do this analysis. The reason is that not that the other companies are not there, but other companies either are privately held, like that Simpson and Company I mentioned is a privately owned company, so public information is not available. Similarly, Caterpillar is public information, not available for their Indian operation. Mahindra and Tata Motors, they are in this business, but compared to their size, this business is so small that interpreting their balance sheet to draw some trends is really futile. So these are the 4 companies which are predominantly in the business of the kind of engines which we are discussing, and that is why few financial performance trends are captured in the following slide. And as I repeat, these are all publicly available information, analyzed with the help of Bhumika of IDFC. She did a good job and a quick job for me, and I just present them to you to draw some sense out of it. These are the 4 listed companies. These are their market caps. Of course, the largest is Cummins India, as you can see from the numbers. And these are the PE ratios currently at which their shares are trading. And book value to CMP to book value, you get a feel of that. Actually, Swaraj Engines shouldn't be in this list, but I still brought it because it's a public company. It is owned, the promoters are Kirloskar Oil Engine and Mahindra. Together they own more than 50%, and balance is in float. And this company exclusively manufactures engines for Swaraj brand of tractors, while 3 are manufacturing for any large variety of customer. Now, let us say last 3 years, how are their domestic sales performed? You'll observe Cummins India is minus 2.5%, Kirloskar Coil Engine almost the same, 0.1%, Greaves 1.3%, Swaraj Engine 6.4%. 6.4 because their fortune is directly tied to sale of tractors in the country. So, domestic sales of these kind of engines have not improved in last 3 years. The sales are static. This is the point which we are trying to make. However, there are some indicators for one company where we see that Q1 FY16 and Q2 FY16 results which are just out, there is an increase. Whether it is an indicator of things to come, I leave it to your understanding of the subject. Exports. Now, it appears from these figures that Cummins India is the company which has been taking good advantage of the competitive manufacturing location in India and stepped up on their imports, it appears, exports in last couple of quarters. That I will not read much into minus 8.7%, which is Q2 figure, because perhaps it is just an aberration. I feel that their exports seem to be growing from these numbers. You can see it. Operating margins. These are the operating margins of various companies, and generally speaking, you will see that the margins are under pressure. Here, that yellow highlight may mean that there is some story there which I do not know. Nor do I intend to dig into it, nor can I answer any question on that. But these are the published figures. And if you observe broadly, the margins of companies, 3 companies are under pressure. This slide is not visible because the lines are very, okay, comes up. All right. May not try to, because it's difficult to read those lines, I put a caption there. In last 5 years, if Sensex has gone up by plus 31%, these are the share price increases of the companies. Cummins 86, Swaraj 94, Greaves 46, Kirloskar 18. Last 1 year, Sensex was 8.2%, while Cummins 13.8, and remaining all are more stable, or one may argue a little bit negative. But these are as of yesterday's price, so maybe a momentary aberration. But this is what this shows. So these are the slides I put together for you to familiarize with the industry, to give you, to share with you few things which may improve your understanding of what drives this industry, and a short presentation, and certainly open to questions. Any comments you may like to add?
No, so I'll first allow the participants to ask questions. I have a couple of them, but let's start with them. Any questions?
Udhar, piche.
There at that end.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. On this diesel genset market, India already has one of the highest installed base of diesel gensets. So assuming if this 24/7 electricity comes through, is there any thought in the association how will the industry pan out, or how will the capacities pan out in a 5 to 7 year kind of time frame, assuming 24/7 happens?
Yeah. Our association assessment, last 2-3 years, the number of hours run of these generating sets have come down. I mean, I remember that highest I have ever heard from servicing teams was somewhere around 6,500 hours a year. That is as high as that I have heard. Currently, in last 2-3 years, it's much closer to 2,000 hours or even less per year. Now this has an impact on the industry as in the spare part consumption goes down. However, one is not reaching a stage yet where the users can do away with these standby generators, because when they are required, they are required. For example, I can't imagine even a jewelry shop not having a standby generator. Or a restaurant. A restaurant comes to a standstill if they don't have a generator. A hotel like this, I'm sure they must be having on-site standby power. So these are also becoming necessary from safety aspect as well, because all the stadiums, all large public places, I think there's a law now where you have to have standby power. So this is the usage pattern which we have seen changing. We believe that the further installations may not stop, because if the investment is to be made, suppose a factory is to be put up, the cost of generating set is a very small percentage of the total investment which is happening on site. And even if you say that someday the plant may be shut down for 2 days because there is no standby power, I think the cost of generating set is recovered in that. So as an industry association view, we do not feel significant change will happen in terms of installation of generating sets. However, the capital expenditure must happen into the projects, into factories and things like that. Then only further installations will happen. And another consumption of these smaller sets especially is the telecommunication and data networks. They keep standby power at their data centers, and which is essential for them. Also the BPOs of the country and call centers, all these guys require definite power and available power. So assurance of power is what is driving them towards this investment, not perceived power breakdowns so much also. Yeah? Okay. Any other?
Sir,
I guess your turn.
I have a couple of questions. So there are occasions when I see some companies come and say that no, foreigners can't come into this space, and even if they were to set up, it will be very expensive for them to sell those machines. So what is your thought process on that, and how do we sort of take this into account?
No,
I'm talking about especially where there are tie-ups, already existing tie-ups which are in place.
I think the greater barrier is not so much into pricing and the custom duties. The greater barrier is being able to provide service across the country and ready to set up that service facility, make the necessary investment in putting up those service stations, training the manpower, employing the manpower. Because this is where initially on a financial analysis you will not be able to justify the creation of the service facility. Because the population is less, so there is no demand for service. But you have to still employ a minimum number of engineers, stock some spare parts, have a physical facility, pay the rents, electricity, whatever it may be. So this is more of a deterrent than the pricing or custom duties. Is that kind of question you had?
Yes. So it answers some part of my question, but let me ask a direct question in that sense. So we have this situation about Greaves Cotton, where they have a partner.
Sorry?
Greaves Cotton.
Greaves Cotton, okay.
And obviously, there is a tie-up for the buyer to set up its own facility versus outsourcing from Greaves.
You mean the customer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how difficult it is for a manufacturer to actually sever and do some things on his own.
Okay.
Especially when he's taking a captive, especially when he's taking a very large amount of engines from engine manufacturer?
You see, this situation happens world over. What, if I understand his question correctly, what he's saying that there is a large customer who's consuming your engines and as a OEM supply, and someday they decide that they will go their own way and manufacture their own engine. Obviously, if they are already manufacturing the engine somewhere else in the world, then the technology is not an issue. It is a question of setting up the appropriate manufacturing plant, which again they have experience because they are manufacturing somewhere else. This does happen in different parts of the world as well. One more example which I don't mind even naming is JCB. JCB is a manufacturer of construction equipment, and globally they used to purchase engines from Perkins, which is a United Kingdom based company owned by Caterpillar for many, many years, but they were buying significant quantity of engines themselves. And some stage their management about 12-15 years ago took a decision that no, we will like to bring the distinctiveness in our product. Mark my word, we would like to bring the distinctiveness in our product by designing our own engine and manufacturing our own engine. It was that determination which drove them to design an engine on their own. They designed a new engine and of course engaged the right kind of people in getting that design done. There's a very capable company, JCB, and started manufacturing that engine, and that manufacturer, and they discontinued buying from Perkins globally. And in India also similar story repeated. JCB today make their own engines, but earlier they were buying engines from an engine supplier. So these things do happen. I understand the reference which he is making, but these are driven, all these decisions are not driven purely from economics, I would believe. They are also driven from a end product manufacturer's desire, or that I would like to have some distinctiveness in the product. It works both ways. There are certain products, like a motor car, you never see the engine. You don't know what engine is inside. And I don't know whether many of you know that the engine in many small cars of Maruti and Tata is actually a Fiat engine. It's a Fiat engine and manufactured in a central plant, diesel engine, and used by Maruti and used by Tata Motors. But we don't care, we buy a car and we don't really look under the hood what is the label on the engine. But places where the engine is more visible, there, and especially the less evolved customer, because less evolved customer says, this is what I have used for 30 years, I know it works, and therefore I don't want to change. He's not able to evaluate this technology, that technology and all that, he simply goes by that. This kind of thing happens in tractors. This kind of thing happens in tractors where the engine is very much visible. Now slowly tractors also are getting covered because they also have noise regulations now. But if you imagine a tractor is more or less all open. You can see the engine, you can see the transmission, everything is open. So there the consumer says, yes, I've been using this tractor with such and such engine for 30 years, I want to buy that only. So these decisions are more drivers. Also there may be sometimes a trigger of, there may be a quality issue of a little bit epidemic nature, which the engine supplier may not have attended as promptly or to the full satisfaction of the customer. And that gives rise to this thing that why the hell I buy so many thousand engines and I can manufacture them economically as well. Even if it is a little more expensive, doesn't really matter. Correct. So this kind of thinking can drive people to take such decisions.
So second question now, with the fuel prices falling and even the commodity prices falling like iron and steel, etc., do you see that if it stays like this for next few years, do you see diesel engines becoming a lot more popular for generating engines, for generator sets in power?
See, as far as diesel engines is concerned, there are certain kind of jobs only diesel engines can do. For example, you cannot have a petrol engine powered power tiller. Technically nothing wrong, you can make it, but it will remain as like a high school project or a college project. It cannot have the strength to dig the earth which is required for tilling purposes of a farm tractor. The same thing applies for a truck which has to haul large loads, or for an excavator or a crane or these kind of things. And even in case of generating sets, the power density which a diesel engine can have, that diesel engine power density is pretty high. So theoretically, you can make a 500 horsepower petrol engine and say, I will make a generating set out of it. It will work, it will give electricity, but nobody in the world does that. So the gasoline engines more or less remain in the range, one of the lower category where portability is a prime consideration. For example, in the Western world, they want generating sets which they want to carry on the boat, they want to carry it in their garden, they want to carry it on their camping sites and things like that. Maybe that engine has a lot of similarity with their lawnmowers, it has similarity with the motorcycles and things of that kind. So, generally speaking, gasoline engines worldwide get limited to something like below 19 kW. Above 19 kW, the gasoline engines do exist, but they are more automotive derivatives and they may be used for some specific purpose. For example, certain very lightweight machinery which military requires, then they will use even a 50 horsepower petrol engine, which may be a derivative of a vehicle. But in terms of as investors and as a business people, the quantities are not significant to really cloud our thinking on that. Theoretically possible, but not much.
Thanks.
Well,
So if
thank
there
you
are
for
no further
patient
questions,
listening.
yeah.